a completely charred corpse, so deformed that no one could determine whether it belonged to a man or a woman. This case dates back to 1988 and remains one of the most significant forensic and criminal investigation files in Egypt. Uncovering its details and circumstances was extremely difficult. The full story of the Imbaba corpse. In 1988, in the workers' city area of Imbaba, Egypt, at 7 a.m., a large group of parents was gathered near the wall of a school, dropping off their children. Suddenly, they noticed a strange and unbearable smell emanating from a nearby garbage bin. The odor resembled burnt meat, but had a disturbing, unusual quality. What caught their attention even more was the smoke still rising from the garbage bin. It was evident that the fire had been extinguished by the heavy rain that fell earlier that morning. Curious, a few parents approached the bin to see what was burning. What they found was horrifying. A completely charred corpse, unrecognizable to the point that they couldn't determine whether it was male or female. Immediately, people started speculating. Many believed it was the body of a student, possibly a victim of an assault, who was then burned to hide the crime. Panic spread among the parents, and no one was willing to leave their children at school. The news quickly escalated, prompting several people to call the police. Soon, law enforcement arrived, accompanied by forensic experts. They cordoned off the area around the garbage bin to properly examine the crime scene. Unfortunately, due to the rain and the crowd that had gathered before the police arrived, most potential evidence had been washed away or disturbed. The forensic team noted traces of blood, though the rain had diluted them, making it impossible to determine the exact path of the crime. More importantly, forensic experts concluded that the fire had been deliberately set. They found traces of gasoline and motor oil, substances not typically found in a garbage bin, indicating arson. As they removed the charred body from the bin, they discovered a silver ring and a burnt engagement band on the victim's hand. They also found strands of burnt hair stuck to the skull. Based on the body's structure, forensic specialists determined that the victim was a woman. However, her identity and the circumstances surrounding her death remained a mystery. The body was transferred to the forensic department, where shocking revelations emerged. The victim was not a student, but a woman around 30 years old. Even more horrifying was the discovery that she had been burned alive. Smoke particles were found in her respiratory system, and toxicology tests confirmed a high level of carboxyhemoglobin in her blood, proving that she had inhaled smoke while still alive. This meant that the garbage bin was the actual crime scene. The woman had been thrown inside, set on fire, and left to burn alive. Additionally, forensic analysis revealed multiple pre-mortem injuries, indicating that she had been tortured before being burned. Given these findings, the police intensified their presence in the area, hoping to gather more information. They initially examined all missing persons reports, but none matched the victim's description. Expanding their search to nearby rural areas also yielded no results. The next day, undercover officers and informants spread throughout the neighborhood, trying to extract any useful information. However, residents seemed reluctant to speak. No one had any details beyond what they had already told investigators. 2 days later, a crucial lead emerged. A police informant overheard a conversation between two women at the local market. One of them mentioned hearing a woman's desperate screams just before dawn near the residential buildings. She recalled the woman crying out for help, saying, "They're going to kill me." She also heard multiple men yelling and cursing at the woman. At first glance, this might have seemed like casual gossip, but to the police, who had no other leads, this was a breakthrough. It indicated that the woman had been attacked by multiple men near the residential area, about 300 meters from the school where her body was found. The police ramped up their investigations within Imbaba, but most residents denied hearing anything. Their reluctance to speak only raised more suspicion. Several informants confirmed that multiple residents had, in fact, heard a woman's desperate pleas for help that night but were too afraid to get involved. Realizing that fear was silencing the community, the police shifted their focus to known criminals in the area. They soon uncovered information about a notorious gang of thugs, 3 men infamous for intimidating and terrorizing residents. Anyone who crossed them suffered severe consequences, and their relatives were also known criminals. A key detail strengthened the suspicion against these 3 men. Despite 3 days passing since the body's discovery, no one had reported a missing woman matching the victim's description. This suggested that she was not a local resident. By the end of the 3rd day, the police had compiled full profiles on the 3 suspects: a fruit vendor, a plumber, and a driver. These men frequently gathered at the fruit vendor's shop at night, where they drank alcohol and used drugs. Each of them had a criminal record. Lacking direct witnesses willing to testify, the police devised a plan. They summoned the 3 suspects for questioning and tricked them into believing that multiple eyewitnesses had identified them as the culprits. Under pressure, all 3 broke down and confessed. According to their confession, they had been drinking and using drugs at the fruit vendor's shop that night when they noticed a woman walking alone at around 1:30 a.m. She was unfamiliar to them, and they decided to attack her. They approached her, brandishing knives, and began slashing her face and arms. She screamed for help, waking several residents who peeked out of their windows. However, out of fear, they quickly closed them again. The woman continued struggling, but the 3 men overpowered her. One of them sliced open her abdomen with a knife when she resisted. Bleeding heavily, she collapsed, making them lose interest in their initial plan of assault. Deciding to dispose of her, they dragged her body 300 meters to the garbage bin. She was still alive. They then doused her with motor oil and gasoline before setting her on fire. As she screamed in agony, they casually returned to their hangout spot as if nothing had happened, knowing that no one in the neighborhood would dare report them. The rain eventually put out the fire at around 4 a.m., but by then, much of the evidence had been washed away, delaying the investigation for 3 days. To this day, the woman's identity remains unknown. No one ever came forward to claim her. This case serves as a grim reminder of how drugs strip people of their humanity. The 3 criminals showed no remorse for their actions. Despite the lack of modern surveillance technology at the time, police investigators managed to solve the case in just 3 days through classic investigative methods. The Imbaba corpse case remains one of the most significant forensic and criminal investigations in Egyptian history. Stay safe.